All right. So we have talked about getting Steve onto the stream a million times, and we are going to try again. Let's see if it's going to work this time. Can't find him in my extended queue. He seems to have some sort of like restriction, like not that we can see, but some sort of like shadow ban kind of thing. So in the meantime, we can get some guests on. Jarrett, you might have to sort of, take a back seat for a while, because you've got some pretty radical ideas, this Jarrett guy, the movement kind of doesn't hate him, but he's got some extreme ideas, and that's not a good thing for the movement. We need sensible ideas for the victims that we are defending. If you think about it, extinctionists are essentially defending the majority of the population on this planet from oppression from the minority and from nature as well, right? Nature is effectively oppressing life, and the lucky ones, the privileged, are going along with it. Steve, you are not appearing as a suggested viewer who I can invite. I'm not seeing you in the list. If you've pressed the invite button, it's not working. You must have some kind of shadow ban on your account. I'm probably not going to stream for too long, but let's try and get some interesting conversations going in the meantime. So let's start engaging with some... Oh, hello.
Hello there, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm great. So is this a thought experiment or an honest movement?
It's a real movement. We have lots of activists, dozens of social media accounts. We've been around for 3 years. That's when the movement started. We've got a website, proextinction.com. We've got a Discord. We do street protests. We do lots of stuff. It's a very real movement. We have virtually infinite future victims of torture depending on us to prevent their suffering and their torture. So it's a real movement.
Sounds pretty considerate, actually. Did you think about the implications of after extinction that due to the, as they say, Goldilocks zone that we're in, that we would just eventually, over billions of years, reappear and then be in the same situation again?
Yeah, so even if that did happen, it would still be good to prevent loads of suffering that would have otherwise taken place. And actually, that is the main part of our mission at the Pro-Extinction Movement. It is to prevent life from developing and redeveloping. Now, Earth-based extinction is quite easy, actually. We can definitely remove the animal population. Working to prevent them coming back will be less urgent because it takes a very long time for life to develop. It takes a lot of time in terms of the random chances and the statistics needed as well. So that's something we'll have a lot of time to work on for Earth. Now, we also want to do universe-wide extinction because the universe could be full of life and victims that need our help as well. Right. So the majority of that will be about preventing life from developing and coming about in the first place.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable mission that could possibly be achievable. How do I get on board?
Great question. So you can join our Discord or our WhatsApp group. The links to both of those are at the bottom of our pages on proextinction.com. And we can definitely help you if you want to be an activist. We can give you guides. We can hold your hand the whole way. Most people that do activism make videos They do street protests and film it, stuff like that. Mostly it's just online activism, and we can definitely help you get involved.
Right. And I guess the obvious question, but I guess there's an obvious answer. How come you haven't terminated your own life already to prevent more suffering on your
So the thing is that we need a strong and healthy humanity going forward. If humanity goes extinct, then we can't do animal extinction or universe extinction. So we need active solutions, not passive ones, and not opting out. We're
crew?
against self-harm. We're
Like
against
a chicken or
violence.
the egg issue, right? So you want it to occur naturally. Well, we still have to cause suffering to remove suffering, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, extinction isn't going to happen naturally. Unless we cause extinction for animals, they will suffer for millions of more years. So we
Right.
need to euthanize all of the animals on the planet and prevent them from reproducing further generations that are going to suffer needlessly.
Hmm.
So we should have a suffering-free planet, suffering-free universe, and then finally, humanity can be the last to go because they're the ones that can help others. Animals can't help themselves.
Right, that's true. And who is the founder of this movement?
His name is Steve, and he's from India.
Oh, wow. I would have thought he would be from the UK. But okay, interesting. Steve from India. Okay. Wow, this has been really enlightening. It was a pleasure speaking with you. You can kick me now, but I'll come back in the future.
Thanks for coming on, and definitely check out our website. We have an FAQ, we have a manifesto, contact links, and again, the link to our Discord if you'd like to come and chat with the team, chat with the other activists and myself, and ask some questions. We'll always be available on Discord. Hello, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Well, I was actually gonna ask you how is this really working? Like, because I've been thinking about it for like the past year or something, although it has never occurred to me to actually go ahead and look it up and see if there's an actual movement about it. But
Yep.
I'm curious as to how it actually works, because my conclusion, my personal conclusion was like to reach such a point, you must like the society must evolve in such a manner that it should at least partially resemble the Marxist view of a socialist world. So I was like actually wondering how is this movement planning on achieving that kind of like total extinction?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right that controlling the planet would definitely be necessary to be able to achieve animal extinction, right? There's no way you're going to have total animal extinction while you're at war with half of the world or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to control the planet, and then that's our biggest problem at the minute, right? So that's our biggest thing that we're trying to solve, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get it.
So then we would have to remove our dependence on animals because they produce our oxygen, they pollinate our flowers. So we couldn't just remove animals immediately. We would have to engineer a way to replace them and to make the planet habitable without them. So we can probably do both at the same time, removing the animal population while removing our dependence on them. There's lots of animals that we don't need right now to begin with, so it can definitely be phased and gradual. And then we can begin the mission of universal or cosmic extinction, which is just trying to do as much of it as we can in space. There's no reason to think that we're definitely limited just to Earth.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly. Yeah.
so even if it takes, even if it took humanity 100,000 years of continuing to suffer while doing science and stuff, and even if we could only help one planet, just one, it would still be a net benefit to prevent millions or billions of years of suffering on that one planet. But we might be able to do, more than one planet. We might be able to do the galaxy, the universe. Who knows? We won't know until we start actually exploring this stuff properly.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point. Actually, I always thought about it, or I imagined it as something that it must necessarily involve like the whole existence in itself, like maybe annihilating the whole universe, and at least making it impossible to like, because this, I feel like this could be a um, worthwhile goal to like make sure that existence cannot reappear any like at any point. So like you completely annihilate any possibility of any life coming into existence again and again. But I never thought about actually doing it gradually, like maybe one planet at a time. But that definitely makes a lot of sense. Like I get what you're saying. Also, I'm curious, like what do you picture as, like, what do you think is going to happen once you die, particularly like you as an individual? Do you think there's anything after, like sorts of afterlife, or
No, our movement is atheist. We think that the only thing that happens when you pass away is that you gain safety from suffering, right? So that's a really good thing. That's a really important and valuable thing. You gain safety from suffering.
yeah, all right, that because this is how I arrived at this conclusion when I thought about like, because me personally, I'm an agnostic, but I do not think anything happens after you die. So, but that being nothingness in itself, it can't exist. So, it kind of acts as a vacuum to glue together any individual life and like consciousness and the ability to feel pain and suffering and, well, yeah. No, I mean, I'm actually, I'm glad I got to see you. I just like your one of your videos just popped up on my for you page, and then I've seen that you're live, and this feels kind of insane to me because I've been actually thinking about this for such a long while at this point, and even talked to like so many people and kind of explained everything basically the same way you
Yeah.
do, and I never knew like that there's a movement. Where do I find the Discord?
Yeah, so all you have to do is search on Google "abolish suffering Discord" and it'll be the first link. Alternatively, you can go to our website, proextinction.com. You can read all about the movement, and the link to the Discord and our WhatsApp group is at the bottom of the page.
All right, nice. All right, thank you, mate. Thank you. Have a nice
Coming
day.
on, and you too, and I look forward to seeing you in the Discord. Let's get more people, on the side of the victims
Hi,
and
James.
join the fight for them. Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, great.
Why do you think we all need to die? And
So it's not that we want everyone to die; it's that we want everyone to be safe from suffering.
can't be safe if we're extinct. Can't be anything
Well,
if we're
actually,
extinct.
there's no other way to be safe from suffering, right?
That defeats the purpose of safety, though, if there's nothing to be safe.
Well, no, it doesn't, though. You don't need something to exist in order for it to be safe, right?
But that's easy to say with conscious thought.
Yeah, I just said it.
But we don't have conscious thought when we're dead.
Yeah, you don't have any anxiety, any stress, nothing. It's just peace and absence of harm, and yeah, it's a good thing.
But when you're dead, so you might as well stick out the 50, 60 years you've got left, and then die.
The thing is that without total extinction, you're always going to have new generations and new people being forced into existence, into a life that they didn't ask for, they didn't want, and then they just suffer, and it's unfair, right? So we have to stop that for their sake.
But why? What if
Because
they
it's
don't want
it's
to?
unfair, right? It's wrong. They suffer terribly. It's cruel
Not
and
everyone does.
exploitative.
Have you
Yeah, but the thing is, those that suffer, they need the help the most, right? So they're more
guess so.
important. Yeah,
I see
their
what you
safety
mean.
is more important than the fun of a small minority.
But I think it's like an individual opinion on a sacrifice, assuming that everyone needs to have that same opinion. Not everybody wants to die or go extinct.
Yeah, not everyone has to have the same opinion. A lot of people are going to resist and disagree, but the police use force when they tackle a criminal or when they enforce a law. We oftentimes enforce laws on people that are just minding their own business, but
Yeah.
they still have to obey the
James,
law, right?
I have a more rational suggestion for you. Don't
Okay.
associate yourself with things that don't associate with you. If something's brutal or people are unfair, don't associate yourself with it. You've got to protect your peace in better ways.
But that's a selfish sort of perspective. It's saying prioritize yourself, let everyone else suffer, right? So
That's it.
we're not about that. We're about helping those that need help and, prioritizing others over ourselves and our, small selfish needs.
But you can't protect your own peace and you can't be as your best if you're too focused on things that are out of your control.
Well, we're focusing on the only thing that matters, which is protecting life from suffering and from danger, basically. So, if we don't do this, the victims are going to suffer terribly. It's cruel, it's wrong, it's unnecessary, it's unfair, it's exploitative. So we should try to be good people, right? And being good means having like a zero tolerance policy on making others suffer, exploiting others, allowing them to suffer terribly, right? So, you can't be a good person while saying, I'm going to focus on myself and let everyone else burn and suffer, right?
Would a
That's
good
you
person,
can't be a good.
not disregarding that you're a good person, but would a good person, entirely good person, want everybody to die, be extinct?
Well, like I said, we don't want everyone to die. That's not what we want, right? What
No,
we
it's not
want
extinction.
is, but the thing is that total extinction is the only way to provide what actually matters, which is safety from suffering,
Yeah.
safety from being forced into a life that you didn't ask for and you didn't want, right? So the thing is that there is nothing worse in the world, and you can't even imagine anything worse than being forced to exist and to suffer terribly, right? There's nothing else that's worse than that.
But similar to that logic, you don't ask for your friends and family, but you have to be thankful for it.
Right, but you're applying logic that only applies to a small minority of the lucky ones who benefit from existing. The unlucky ones are being dragged along with this for the sake of a small minority of selfish people who are saying, let them suffer, right? So
But
it's
the
not a
thing
good
is,
system.
the irony
Sorry?
is, there would be no other way for you to reach your goal without killing everybody. But you don't want to kill everybody.
Oh,
That's
no, we support euthanasia. We just don't use the term killing. Killing
Who's
kind
gonna
of
kill the last
encapsulates all
person then?
sorts of violence. Euthanasia is an ethical, responsible way to provide safety from suffering.
But when everyone's being had euthanasia, who's gonna kill the last person? They're gonna kill himself.
Well, questions like that are quite trivial, really,
But it's
because
kind of relevant, though. It's kind
it's
of
it's not that relevant.
it
The
is
thing is,
because there
we
would be a
want
last
humanity.
person.
We want humanity to exist for hundreds of more years so that they can carry out extinction for other life.
Well, that's a
So,
hundred more years of cruelness.
yeah, but the thing is, we can't predict what the future is going to look like 300 years from now, 1,000 years from now. So
Exactly.
the systems in place for extinction are going to be far more developed than what we have now. All of these questions that you're asking are essentially just small parts of the puzzle that aren't actually relevant now. And, we don't waste our time thinking of every single last little question because, we can cross that bridge when we get
You
to it
don't have
or
to
get
consider
closer
it.
to it.
But in terms of thinking 100 years ahead, you're not going to
Yeah.
be here anymore. And what is this prompt and opinion going to matter in 100 years?
Yeah, so we don't really expect to achieve victory or extinction in our lifetime, but we're building the movement to make it possible for the future generations.
How many people are in the movement?
About a dozen.
How many roughly? Exact.
Yeah, I can't give you an exact number, but it's between I mean, it's
Above.
probably between like 15 and 20, really.
Okay. And they have the same opinion?
Yeah. I mean, when they invited me to join the movement, all they had to say was, we're fighting for a suffering-free world. No one should have to suffer. Let's make sure no one suffers. And I thought, yeah, great, sign me up. How can I help?
Are they nihilists?
No.
I'd argue this is quite a nihilistic point to make.
That's just your opinion.
I think it's a logical opinion.
So do you want to expand on that? What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'll expand on it. So, saying that because inevitably there's going to be suffering and cruelty in generations to come, you should disregard everything else and just be extinct. That's quite
When you say
nihilistic.
everything else, what are you referring to?
Nothing. I'm just meaning whatever you mean. Anything that you mean.
These are your words, not mine.
It's your prompt. It's what your prompt says. What do you want to be
You're,
extinct?
you're the one talking.
I'm talking about what you've got on your prompt in your background. Do you want people to be extinct? Do you want animals to be extinct too? Or just people?
Animals as well.
Why?
Because they suffer worse than we do.
By the hands of who?
Nature, mostly.
What aspect of nature?
So in nature, wild animals starve to death, they freeze to death, they burn alive in forest fires, they have diseases, parasites are very common, they have no medicine, no shelter, no secure food, no fridge, right? They're chased for their lives by murderous animals all day, every day. It's a terrifying experience, horrifying. And then most of them get eaten alive during childhood. So that's pretty bad, right?
It is bad, but I hate to say it. It's been that way since the dawn of time.
But
And
that doesn't matter.
But supposedly it's kind of like what Geralt of Rivia said. You got to pick the lesser evil, man.
That's what we're doing.
Nah, you're just saying it in a good way.
But the thing is, right, if you're against extinction, then you're in favor of allowing others to suffer needlessly, right?
But you're also allowing room for people to have the chance to make good things happen.
But the thing is, the victims don't deserve to be used as fodder like that, right? So you don't get to just make someone suffer so that someone else can have some shallow, fleeting pleasure and privilege. It's exploitation, it's cruel, it's wrong, and I can tell you that there is no pleasure that justifies it. There's no pleasure that's as intense as is the suffering of a child being tortured to death.
By who?
Whoever.
But it is quite a niche thing that is publicised quite a lot because it is a bad crime. So people
But
will
again, if you
publicise
include
it.
animals, it's not the niche, it's the majority, the vast majority.
The harsh truth is, James, people publicise bad things that happen, such as crimes, more than good deeds nowadays. That's why you
Right,
see a lot more of it.
but the statistics are that over 99.9% of animals born into nature will die a painful death as babies and young children, okay? You wouldn't want to experience that. You wouldn't want anyone you know to experience that.
You gotta
So
consider.
let's get serious and acknowledge that it's bad and it's unacceptable.
But you have to consider the fact that we are domesticated. We have the luxuries
Why
of
do I have to
living in
consider
houses.
that fact? How is that even vaguely relevant?
Because we are domesticated, we have security and safety.
Yes,
Animals,
we are more privileged, right?
we
So
don't have
instead of
to.
just
We aren't
instead of
born
selfishly
sorry.
acquiring more and more privilege, we should be helping others.
But what I mean is, animals are born, they have apex predators and predators. We're not born and running away from things and surviving and finding food and hunting food since birth. We're provided.
You're not, but lots of people are,
Neither are
right?
you.
Try and survive in Palestine and tell me that you're not experiencing all of those things that you just mentioned.
Are you born in Palestine?
No.
Then it's not your place to say. I'm pretty sure
Why
people.
not? But that's an insane mentality that I can't speak out for a victim who's suffering somewhere else because it's not me. That is what the oppressors want. They want you to not be able to speak out for other victims because it goes against their system of oppression and cruelty. So get real. Hello, how's it going?
Hey man, what's up? So
Here we go.
I just wanted to say it's cool that you're now on TikTok. I followed your channel of you and Steve on YouTube.
Right, Elias, it's you, of course, yes. How
I
you
know
doing?
I think we didn't met before, but yeah, I just sometimes watch your live streams on YouTube, and I was just wondering about this antenatalist thing. So I mean, I get your point. If the antenatalists, they have a good intention, but unfortunately, if they don't reproduce, basically only the bad people reproduce, right?
Exactly.
Uh, but somehow I think it's kind of it's a bit unhinged if you think about it, that you only make a child so that this child will help the cause of extinction. Like, don't you think it's a bit yeah, it's a bit strange. Basically, you raise your kid and you say, basically the only reason I got you is because I want to go everything is extinct,
Yeah, but the thing is, if that's necessary, then it's for the greater good, right? So you're considering the suffering of a human child, but you're not considering how they might be necessary for ending billions of years of suffering for animals. So any suffering that human's going to have is going to be a drop in the ocean compared to what they're helping to prevent.
Yeah, I see, I see. And the other thing about the vegan thing, so the most of the animals we eat nowadays, they are bred into existence, right? Like pigs on
Yeah.
a farm, cows, etc. And so basically, if we stop consuming those animals, isn't it better because then they will go extinct? Because um, your point is basically we shouldn't go vegan because can you elaborate again? Because why should we continue to eat, for example, animals in farms like in slaughterhouses, etc.
So our official position on this is that you can be vegan and you can also be non-vegan as an extinctionist. However, at the minute, it does seem very much the case that veganism causes more suffering. Now, the reason for this is that the amount of land and space that animal agriculture uses is about 5 times more than that of the land taken up by vegan agriculture for the same produce. So vegan land use is 5 times more efficient for the same food produced and calories, essentially. So what this means is that essentially all of that land being used for animal agriculture, the majority of it isn't cows, right? It's crops. Some of it is cows and other animals, but the majority of it is food being created for those animals.
Right.
Okay, and by taking up all of that land, you're preventing wild animals from existing on that land. So, for example, the best example is deforestation. Now, with a lot of deforestation, once they've used the land that they've deforested, it becomes kind of barren and difficult to use it for more animal agriculture. So they have to deforest even more land, essentially. And that is actually a good thing because it prevents wild animals from suffering there. Now, I told you that the land used by animal agriculture is 5 times more than vegan food. But veganism isn't just about food. So if you include all of the operations that are anti-vegan, then it's not just 5 times, it's more like 10 times, because you've got deforestation for wood, you've got mining operations, you've got all sorts of things that land is used for, motorways, roads, all, cities, all sorts of stuff like that, which is, in a sense, non-vegan because it harms animals. So if you want to be a vegan, we say that's okay, go ahead and do it. But at the minute, it does technically cause more harm and suffering. However, going forward, right, we would absolutely want to get rid of that farm animal population. But at the same time, we have to consider suffering in the greater picture and what is best. Now, I don't think it's going to be a case of, all farmed animals have to keep living and we should only focus on wild animals. It's most likely going to come down to some sort of AI algorithm which determines what the best route forward is. And that will have lots of different, moving pieces kind of fitting into the puzzle, reducing our dependence on animals, so making sure that we can have a vegan food supply for everyone. We do want a vegan future, but it may at the minute just be causing more suffering. Now, so it's not massively important for going forward, unless you have to consider the wild animals as well. That is important. But yeah, we do want a vegan future eventually. We just have to consider the impact on wild animals as well.
So yeah, right. The only factor that is basically suffering, to reduce suffering. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and farmed animals, it's a bad thing, absolutely. But they do have slightly better conditions than wild animals. They have food, shelter, medicine, euthanasia. They don't get eaten alive. So now, I'm not saying that that's a massive thing that's going to shift towards forgetting about wild farmed animals. Again, we might be able to do both at the same time, just in different speeds. It's going to be something like that, most likely.
So that means basically we should also be in favor of the people in like Brazil who cut down the Amazon forest, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the less forest there is, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
now, the other thing about that is that they're probably not being very ethical about it. They're probably killing the animals however they want. So I'm not saying that deforestation by companies is always done in an ethical way. I think a lot of the time it does reduce wild animal populations, and that is a good thing. But it could probably be done in a more ethical and organized way. So that's the important thing here. That the vegan agriculture, the farm animal agriculture, these are all bad systems, and we need to work towards better things on every front.
Right. Someone is commenting here that this host is spreading a cult. So as far as I know, a cult has a charismatic leader, and there is no charismatic leader in this movement.
I agree. And the person that founded the movement is very uncharismatic, actually.
Is it Steve, actually?
Steve founded the movement, yep.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, obviously you've seen him on YouTube. He's trying to get onto TikTok now. But he's got to use a VPN because TikTok is banned in India.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's illegal in India. So he might have a bit of a shadow ban on his VPN account on TikTok. He's trying to get around it at the minute. Um, but yeah, we might get Steve on. We've also got Renee. Renee is our 16-year-old German activist, and you wouldn't know he was 16 because he looks more like 19 or something. He's been doing street protests very frequently for extinctionism in Germany, and he's also been doing live streams on TikTok in a similar format that I'm using in German.
Oh, he's
So
also on TikTok. I follow this guy on Instagram. It's a guy
yes,
with the piercings, right?
that's right. Yes, he is
Oh,
on
yeah, yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, maybe we can do some activism in Switzerland. So I'm from Switzerland.
Okay.
So we both speak German. Me and Rene is his name, right?
Yeah,
Oh, wow, he's just 16. That's crazy.
I know.
All right.
Are you in our Discord?
I don't think so, no. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay. If you want to do activism, the best way is to join our Discord and our WhatsApp group. The Discord is great and it's a good sort of landing page, but the WhatsApp groups are where we do the majority of our actual activism and talking about activism.
All right, right.
The links are all on the website. It's at the bottom, proextinction.com.
Cool, cool. One thing I forgot to mention is, so if we have to produce like or reproduce more so that the movement grows more, uh, but then at the same time we should basically be in favor of kind of eugenics, because if people are getting born who are severely disabled, basically they cannot join the movement in any way and their life is just full of suffering. So should we be then in favor of eugenics?
Yeah, I don't see why eugenics can't be used for a good reason, right? I mean, we kind of already do eugenics to some extent. If a woman has, a high probability of having a disabled child, then that's something that, medicine is already looking at and will be informing her about. And we already have ultrasounds that can detect in the womb if a child is going to be severely disabled, not with 100% accuracy, but so that's already happening to a large extent, I would say. And yes, I think that improving genetics is a good thing that we should do.
Okay, right. So yeah, thanks for the talk, man. And keep up
Thanks
the
for
work.
coming on, Elias. I really appreciate it.
All right, see ya.
Danke sehr. All right. Oh, Molly wants to join. That sounds like fun.
Hi,
Hello. How's it going?
good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I want to say that I agree with everything that you're saying, but I'm trying to understand because some of the things that you've said make a lot of sense to me. Like, for example, this whole thing about the suffering in Palestine. It, okay, the way that I'm seeing it is that you're coming from a place of empathy, that you don't want to see people suffer, you don't want to see animals suffer, and you don't see the point of suffering. And I'm seeing a lot of judgment in the comments. People are saying that you're a cult leader or whatever they're calling you. But I think when people are not very empathetic, they don't really understand because you don't want to look around and see suffering and see children being unalived and see billionaires eating babies or whatever they're doing, whatever's coming out in these files. And it affects me too, in the same way that when I hear these things, I'm like, I do sort of have this existential crisis of what are we actually doing on this planet? What is the point of all of this suffering? What is the point of all of these children being harmed? And then we're supposed to just go about our day to day. I can't do that personally. It does affect me, and I have to just switch off the news, pretend that it's not happening, sort of just pretend it's not happening. Because if I was to actually sit down and accept that right now the phone that I'm using is because a child in Congo is suffering to get the resources and the materials, that would blow my mind. So yes, it is empathy actually, because a lot of people can just go about their day, go on holiday, and just like ignorance is bliss. But for some of us, it does really affect you. So I'm not saying that your solution is the right one, but I'm also saying I kind of understand where you're coming from, because I don't like to see children suffering. I don't like the fact that there's so many people on this planet right now don't have access to clean water, and we're just supposed to just pretend that's normal. It's not normal. We live in a very strange, evil, hellish world, and we're just walking around like it's normal for everyone to be suffering this much.
Yeah, the thing is that selfishness is glorified in our society. Like it's some great thing that, you know, if only everyone was more selfish, then they'd look after themselves and that would solve every problem, right? When really it's the opposite. We need to be more selfless so that we can have a better system for all, right? The selfish thing is about exploiting the system that you're in. It's almost like being in a forest and, you know, just taking animals and eating them and exploiting, right?
Yeah.
But really, we need to change the system and to have a better system, a more selfless system. The thing is about extinctionism being the right thing or not is we are the only movement saying that only 100% safety from suffering is acceptable, that we should optimize the conditions for all life in a way that, you know, there shouldn't be any life being born into danger, and, you know, conditions with less than 100% safety. Only total extinction can provide that.
It's not possible. The planet that we live on, it's not feasible to be there to protect every child. It's not feasible to make sure that there's no greedy humans who start wars for no reason. It's just not possible. And people are saying, oh, why don't you create a different system? How? Like, I know it sounds really hopeless, and like, but I've grappled with these thoughts for a while now, and I've been thinking about how, like, this world is a very weird, cruel place that we didn't choose to be in. None of us chose to be in. We wake up every day, go to work, pretend that everything's normal. It's not. Like, I don't know how people just, yeah. Also, I wanted to speak to you about, you know, that young girl in Spain, the one who was euthanized a couple of days ago.
Oh, I didn't hear about it.
Okay, so I'll just give a quick rundown of the story. So basically, she's had mental health issues since she was like in her early teens, and then at some point, she was have to be careful of TikTok language. She was raped by her boyfriend, and then again gang raped by a group of men. So she then threw herself out of a 5-story building, and she ended up being paraplegic. So she was like she couldn't walk basically, and so she's severely depressed. She petitions to be euthanized to the European Parliament. They say no. Well, they say yes to begin with, and her dad countersues and says she's not in the right mental state to be euthanized. In the end, basically, she was euthanized, I believe, on Thursday. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. That's just a quick rundown of the story. There's more details, of course, but there's a bit of controversy now. People are saying that the hospital like coerced her to unalive herself because they didn't want to pay for her care. But yeah, that's just the story in a nutshell. And she's 25 years old.
Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do. You know, the people that will argue against it are arguing for her to desperately cope, right? To face the extreme conditions that she's now was now living in, and to put up with that suffering and to sort of try and, you know, survive despite the suffering, to make them feel better, really. I mean, you know, if they wanted the best thing for her, it would be safety from suffering, not potentially suffering on for the rest of her life and not being able to escape from that misery. I think that, you know, far too many people are living a life that they'd be better off not living. You know, people with depression, extreme depression, you know, they're begging for death every day. They don't have the faculties, in most cases, to actually go ahead with it. Now, I'm not suggesting that they should, but we are suggesting that no one should be born in the first place to face these nightmares. So yeah, we totally agree with euthanasia. It's a good thing, and we should prioritize safety from suffering, not survival.
I also had a question for you in terms of I'm assuming you haven't had these thoughts since childhood. So I'm just wondering, was there a turning point that made you start to think of this extinction way, that this is the right way that we should be doing things as humans, or was there a particular experience that you had that made you start having these thoughts?
So yeah, about I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, and before that as well, I was very left wing, and you know, the politics that I followed on YouTube and stuff, it was very much rallying against the main body of the left, right? And saying that it's useless, it's locked in gridlock with the right, and you know, there's basically I eventually started realizing the futility of all of these political parties that were just spinning their wheels in the mud, and you know, none of them are even saying we should have world peace, we should find a way to end all wars or anything like that. So I thought, you know, the aim is very low, the standards are very low, it's not good enough. And eventually I found the pro-extinction movement, and they said, you know, we want to correct this crazy world, stop innocents from being forced into lives that they never asked for, they didn't want, and then they suffer. Because that is the worst thing in the world. Like, it's impossible to even suggest something worse than being forced into a life that you didn't want or ask for, and then suffering terribly. Like, that is the only bad thing in the world, and it's the worst thing. So when they suggested to me, you know, let's fight for a world with no suffering, this is the only way, and it's the only right thing to do, I was immediately like, yeah, how can I help?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I completely agree with your conclusion, but I would say that I understand where you're coming from. But yeah, thanks for speaking up. I'm gonna go now.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate the questions, and take care. All right. The queue has got quite a few people in it. So who looks interesting? Yusuf has been waiting for quite a long time in the queue. Julio, why don't you join? That would be good. Hello, how's it going?
Howdy, I'm doing great. All right, so I see you. Do you hear me?
Say again?
Do you hear me well?
Yep,
All
loud
right,
and clear.
great. Okay, so your entire point is like erase it so it doesn't feel pain. Is that it?
It's about minimizing pain and the risk of pain and suffering, right? So the only way to do that is to have total extinction.
Okay, and why?
For the victims who will benefit and who need this safety, right? Who shouldn't be forced to exist into lives that they never asked for, and then they suffer terribly. That's cruel, it's unfair, it's wrong, and those that are suffering are more important than those
Have
who
you asked
are
them?
not. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to loads of people that said, yeah, you know, I wish there'd been an extinction. We should do it. Yeah.
Okay, but what if there's people who don't agree with that?
So that would be a selfish position of saying, you know, my survival is more important than your safety. So that's wrong. And yeah, in the same way that the police use force to, you know, enforce laws and things, we shouldn't give people unlimited freedom to cause suffering and to allow suffering.
So your entire, well, hold on, police, whoa. So you want to use an authority figure to enforce a
No, I was
policy of
giving you an
extinction?
example. I was giving you just an example
Oh,
of
okay.
how force is used to defend others.
Okay. So defend others, but still, like, you do require the consent of the people, right?
No, I mean, a police officer doesn't ask for the consent of a criminal before stopping him from hurting someone, right?
So how do you circumvent the consent part then?
So we would ideally have consent, and we are working towards democratically moving forward. However, if for whatever reason, for example, if we only had 49% support and we just couldn't get it beyond that, then we would have to look into other methods, right?
Wait, so hold on. This sounds a lot like you just wanted to like erase people at any cost, even if it means generating more suffering, because you believe the current suffering is gonna be equalized by the suffering not happening.
Equalized? What? No, it's nothing about equalizing. No, none of what you said is right.
Okay, then correct me.
It's not that we want everyone to die. It's that we want everyone to be safe. We want there to be no more life being forced into dangerous conditions,
Okay.
unsafe
So,
conditions, right? Life deserves
what
better
does
than
this
that.
future look like? Will humans still exist?
Yeah, so humans need to exist, they need to reproduce, because if humanity went extinct, then we wouldn't be able to do animal extinction or universe-wide extinction, right? So as the only ones capable of doing it, we have to go last.
Uh-huh. You know what this sounds a lot like to me? It just sounds like the product of post 20th century, when they killed off all the communists and socialists, and now people can no longer see, cannot even imagine a better future anymore. So they think that
It's not
extinction is
about
the
that.
way.
It's not about losing hope. It's not about not imagining a better future. It's about compassion and responsibility and moral obligation, right?
Is
It's
it not
about
more compassionate to let someone fall?
Yusuf, we are the only movement that has a zero tolerance policy on victims and suffering, right? We are the only movement saying we should make it so that no one is suffering so that others can have fun. We are the only movement saying that, okay?
Yes, I understand. I do also not want suffering. However, I don't do that by ignoring consent. You know what I mean?
But if you're not going to take practical and realistic steps to end suffering, then you might as well want the suffering, Yusuf, right? You say you don't want suffering, but if you're against it actually happening, then are you really in support of there being no suffering, right?
I am, and I don't want to use like the personal argument here because I don't believe in them, but I am working on reducing suffering in the world worldwide. This is why I'm such a far left movement leader in my community. So, but I
You
don't.
see, reducing suffering instead of eliminating suffering is unfair to the victims. It's still exploitative, it's still cruel, it's still unfair, and it's still oppressive, right? You're still saying
Yeah,
it's
but I would
acceptable
first
for
ask
them
the
to
victim first if he wants to die or not exist, you know?
But Yusuf, that if we need to have total extinction, right? And that's the only way to defend the victims, then we shouldn't prioritize the oppressors like you're suggesting. We should prioritize the victims.
Can you tell me how I prioritize the oppressor? I didn't get that part.
So if you're saying that we should care more for the feelings of the lucky ones, the lucky ones in life instead of the unlucky ones, then that doesn't make sense.
The unlucky ones and the lucky ones? Like, I talked about
Yeah.
consent in general, you know that, right?
Right, but the thing is, Yusuf, most life on this planet doesn't ever get to give consent in any form.
So you should
They're
work on that first before you work on erasing it, don't you think?
But look, Yusuf, you can't get consent on anything from a baby mouse or a bird, okay? Or any animal, right? So what you're proposing is disconnected from reality.
So hold on. Something has to be able to give consent in order to... Wait, what if something cannot give consent? Babies cannot give consent.
They don't give consent when they're born, right? So we're essentially just undoing that consent violation.
Again, but for there to be consent in the first place, there needs to be an entity first. You assume that the entity always existed, and you come in here saying that it shouldn't
I'm not
exist.
assuming that at all. I'm not assuming that they always existed. I'm saying that because they didn't exist, of course they couldn't give consent to be born, nobody asks to be born, right?
Yes, but nobody will be asking to be erased either. Do you understand the problem here? Because consent is the
Yeah.
major issue that you run into for your movement.
But well, I mean, it's an obstacle, but I wouldn't say that it's a ideological issue at all. It's totally consistent, and it's very normal to go against the consent of others for the greater good. That's a very normal thing.
And where do you draw the line?
Well, I mean, it would have to be done ethically, responsibly, right?
What is ethically?
So ethics and morality are tied to the greater good, right?
What is the greater good? Like, how do you define it?
So the greater good is whatever is best, right? It's whatever is best, effectively. So what is best is prioritizing safety over unfair and exploitative, shallow privileges and pleasures, right?
So the willness of goodness, the will of good, like, is this some Kantian philosophy? Where did you get this from?
So
It
we
sounds a lot like Kant.
we don't rely on philosophy. We reject philosophy, actually. Our movement is against it. Philosophy is just a waste of time, really. Suffering-focused ethics and morality-focused ethics and thinking is the only thing that makes
I think we stop it here. If you don't even know Kantian philosophy and you come here...
I mean, I know all about it, but it's completely irrelevant. And yeah, we see philosophy as just like a hamster wheel for insane people, basically. What has philosophy ever achieved? Nothing, really. All right, let's check the queue. Let's bring somebody else on. We have someone called John Blaze. It's an interesting name. We have someone called Reef Diver. That sounds interesting. I'm inviting all these people on, but they're not accepting. So they've requested to join. They're in my queue. I'm pressing accept, and they're not coming on. So I've got to sort of accept quite a few people here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah, loud and clear. I think they're just checking their settings because they're on pause. Hopefully they'll be back in a moment. So in the meantime, yeah, we are the only movement with a zero tolerance policy on suffering. Now, obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but as empathetic and rational people, as extinctionists, our standard for life is 100% safety from suffering, right? Life deserves safety. And effectively, the system we have, the world we have and live in, is one where life is forced into unsafe conditions. If I have a child right now, I can't guarantee its safety, right? It's just impossible to give it 100% safety. So every single life born on Earth, they didn't ask for it, and they're unsafe. So it's unfair to those that suffer. Hello.
Hi. Well, you can finish off what you were saying.
No, I was just waiting for you, really. So go ahead.
Sorry about that. I just had an issue with my settings. So,
Okay.
I'm not sure how long you've been on this particular live. So, I'm pretty sure people have already brought this up. But I just wanted to talk about the suffering element of this discussion.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so look, I understand you propose we take care of the animals first. So I'm focusing more on the human race element. If we were to go through a situation, right, where it truly led to total extinction, the people alive during that time, I think, would experience so much suffering. Say, like, we went through another pandemic, right? But this time around, the disease is like highly contagious and it's got like a 100% fatality rate. We know how horrific COVID was. So similar to that event, except this time everything gets wiped out because of the fact. I think we're like sort of in the moral gray area in this situation, because in the event of total mass extinction, those of us unlucky enough to have to go through it would definitely experience like emotional and physical suffering, I think. So I guess
Yeah.
my question would be, is the suffering of those people not as important, or do you believe that it's like a necessary evil in order to achieve your goal?
So the main reason for total extinction is to prevent the risk and eventuality of reproduction. So, unless you have total extinction, suffering can continue on for millions or billions of more years. So, in that sense, this is the funniest answer I can give, I guess. But even if we had to torture every single animal and every single human on the planet for 1,000 years, unfortunately, it would still be better than the alternative.
Okay. Look, I don't full on agree with your total extinction solution, because I think we can only achieve it by further suffering, and you are okay with us suffering for another like 1,000 years in order to stop all suffering. But I can understand where you're coming from in that sense, because I know, like,
We have to focus on the greater good. We have to
yeah,
focus on the majority, right?
yeah.
Humans are a tiny, tiny minority on this planet.
Look, I know it's for the greater good, so there's no more suffering in the future, because, like, how can there be suffering when there's nothing? I just think it's kind of disregarding what those of us who have to go through the mass extinction event are going to have
Well,
to endure. That's all.
so the thing is that actually extinction is more merciful than the alternative, even in your scenario, because if you euthanize someone, what happens, right? They immediately become safe from suffering. But the alternative is a natural death. You're going to get cancer, you're going to get diseases, starve to death, dementia, all sorts of terrible things. So everyone's going to suffer way worse without extinction. So actually, extinction is by far and away the best thing. It provides safety. That's a really good thing that everyone will benefit from.
Okay, well, I think the only way I think that total extinction would like even be remotely humane would be like an instant painless event. So maybe if we all collectively like disappeared or lost consciousness, but that only happens in the movies, right? So the only other thing I can think would be the only other realistic event I could think of would be like an extremely severe cosmic event that would like implode the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. But I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetime or in a very long time.
The thing is, again, you have to look at the greater picture, the bigger picture. Even if we suffered for 1 million years, it'd be better than suffering for 10 more million years, right?
Yeah.
So, it's impossible to cause more harm with extinction, even if you tried, right? So obviously we want the least painful extinction possible. But even if we tried to make it the worst extinction possible and the most painful one, again, if everyone had to go into a torture chamber for 1,000 years, right? That would still be more ethical and net less suffering. So you have to consider those that will suffer otherwise, right? If we have a bunch of humans who are the obstacle to extinction and we have to cause them some suffering to protect a massive population of sufferers, then the mathematics work out perfectly well.
All right, so I think it's just really it's a really complicated situation, because in order to end all suffering there has to be suffering basically, and it feels a bit
Well, there's going
paradoxical
to be
to say.
suffering either way, right?
Yeah,
So, there's no choice, right? You either end all suffering or you don't. And obviously, allowing suffering for billions of more years, there's nothing worse than that. So
yeah.
it's kind of the
And
lesser of two
I
evils.
fully agree with you. There's nothing worse than people suffering. That's why I just don't know
The thing
if
is,
it's
right,
for the
if,
greater
if we're
good.
choosing if we're choosing the lesser of the two evils,
Mm,
then you would be choosing the bigger of the two evils if you're against extinction.
yeah. But the way I see it is like, if we were to take a vote, right, I wouldn't feel comfortable voting complete extinction, because I know even if we were the majority, there'd still be a small minority who want to stay alive for whatever reason, and I can't in good faith be like, no, I want to take away your right to live and stuff like that. But like I
Yeah,
said, I can fully understand where you're coming from, and I do agree, like, for the greater good, it is imperative that we basically do
and so, yeah.
enter into like total extinction. But it's just the suffering that people would endure. I just don't think that it's for the greater good, because it feels like we'd be
But
suffering,
again,
we'd be
you're
sacrificing a group of
prioritizing the
people in order
suffering
to
of
reach
the
the end
privileged.
goal.
You need to stop prioritizing the lucky ones and the privileged, right?
Yeah,
The ones that you're worrying about are the lucky ones, right? The ones that are the unlucky ones. Extinction couldn't come sooner, right? It couldn't come fast enough. So you got to think about them. They're suffering far worse than anything these privileged people who are selfish and are denying extinction
and that's more
safety.
important.
Yeah.
My thing would be then, how would we like humanely end their suffering? Like, there's just no humane way to do it, I don't think.
Well, euthanasia is already relatively humane. So
Yeah.
euthanasia already exists, right? So,
But
that
realistically, the
is the
people
most
that are
humane way to
suffering
do it.
are like from war-torn areas and stuff. Do you really think that we could get over to them and basically perform euthanasia?
The thing is that the timelines we're working with are far in the future. So, I mean, unless we somehow take over the planet or the government tomorrow, then realistically we're looking at a very, very long time before extinction and before there's any sort of power held by extinctionists. So in that sense, the landscape is going to be extremely different. The world 10 years from now is going to be very different. 100 years, 500 years from now, 1,000 years, it's inconceivable what it's going to look like at that time, basically.
So how would you envision the mass extinction event?
Great question. So again, the mass extinction event, there's less likelihood of that happening. So I mean, there is vacuum decay, which is, if you created this exotic element, basically, it would destroy the universe. Now, it's a theory, obviously, but that's the kind of a mass extinction event that we would need. So lesser, non-mass events, that more gradual sort of extinction is more realistic. So we would remove our dependence on animals while removing the animal population from Earth. So if animals went extinct today, the planet would be uninhabitable, there wouldn't be enough oxygen, etc. So we need to engineer the replacement for animals while removing animals.
Yeah.
Then we want to do as much of the universe as possible. It may even just be sending out robots to continue the mission by themselves. They can do the science, they can replicate themselves, upgrade themselves, and just go and do it in the same way that we would. So that's a possibility. And then finally, you would have human extinction at the end of all of this. It's, we like to tell people that we will hold out for the possibility of having conditions that are acceptable for life. So, if there's some way that we can provide 100% safety for humans, like a guarantee of a good life, and there's literally like God tier 100% safety, then that is one potential for life continuing. But that so if that makes sense. So
No, that makes
let's
sense,
say
but
that
I
it
think
doesn't.
we as humans would just end up basically starting like ruining it, basically.
Well, right. Life deserves perfect conditions. Basically, anything
Yeah.
less than that is going to be unfair to some of them, and very cruel. So yeah, I mean, we will hold out for some circumstances where maybe we can create heaven-like conditions and it's literally 100% safe. That's the standard, that's the requirement. Anything less than that, we're going to have extinction because safety is the priority. Now, again, I don't know if we'll get to that anytime soon or ever. So if we don't, then we would go ahead with human extinction unless they were somehow still useful, still necessary. So humanity would need a reason to exist if it's still in unsafe conditions.
Okay. Well, like I said, even if we were given heaven-like conditions, I just think that human beings would turn it to shit. Sorry for my rude language, but I don't think that we'd be able to keep it like heaven-like conditions.
Well, it would probably be in, a digital world or something like that.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed. I don't know how to hop off. I think would you have
I
to
can
remove me?
I can take care of it.
All right.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate questions. Feel free to request to join on future streams. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to get going because my girlfriend is cooking a Sunday dinner. It's lamb, in case you're interested. So we have Majid joining us now.
Hi there. I'm fascinated by the intellectual concept. I wonder if there's a level of cognitive dissonance going on. I myself, when I was a lot younger, I'm 37 now, had very similar ideas along with yourself. But I think once you start looking at the justification for the end result, i.e., the total end of all life, I suppose, is what you're talking about, right? This goes further than human society. Am I right in that understanding?
It's about 100% safety for all life at any cost, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is where there's some level of cognitive dissonance going on. So your justification for ending all life that's ever existed that we're aware of is to prevent future suffering.
Yep.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
No.
Okay, so you're saying the cumulative suffering of future potential life is greater than what? What's the maths equation?
Well, I'm not sure what you're getting at, but effectively to have a world where no babies are being tortured to death and nobody is suffering in a cruel and unnecessary way, the only way to achieve that is with total extinction.
Okay, so your proposition is on the basis that future pain and suffering, cumulative, I assume, is more significant than than the justification for life to continue. So you're making that.
No, it's more that suffering and the risk of suffering is more important to deal with than it is to allow survival of a few, monkeys, basically.
Do you think that human beings and a human being could ever potentially be justified to make that call on behalf of all life?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make this movement. There's a team of us. We're an activist movement. We're working to actually achieve it. We have made that decision, and we're working to make it a reality.
This is the problem, though, isn't it? The very life or suffering you're intending to remove is not get. I mean, I don't think you'll ever get human. Let's just say in a few thousand years, this science fictional universe where human beings are on board with this, the bacteria don't get a vote, do they? Single cell organisms, they don't get a vote. I mean, you're basically reducing their ability to survive on the basis that it doesn't matter. So do you see the inherent contradiction? I really do like the
Majid, I've enjoyed our brief time together, but you're not making any sense. You're just kind of going in circles while trying to think of something to say. Try and articulate your thoughts better. Try and think what you want to say before you come on the stream. I appreciate I just added you in, but yeah, you know, you're going to have to sort of articulate a little bit better there. I think you were struggling to sort of even decide what you were trying to ask. Right, if this person joins us, we'll do it. Otherwise, we might be looking at the end of all life. I mean, the end of this stream.
Oh, did I make it? Hello?
Yes, how's it going?
Yeah, good. You know, I totally agree with you. I too feel for how the Bermuda grass underneath our feet are suffering from us trampling over it all day and night, you know?
Well, even if the grass doesn't feel pain, there might be insects or other animals in the grass that do.
Mm. So, I see. Um, so when you say that your ultimate goal is for all species to be extinct, surely that would include human beings, right?
Yes, yeah.
So why don't you lead by example and start with yourself? Like, why are you still living today?
So the thing is, if humanity went extinct, then we wouldn't be able to do animal extinction because that would probably take hundreds of years, if not thousands, right? And if I opted out like you suggest, then I wouldn't be able to spread the message. I wouldn't be able to grow the movement. That would be a big step backwards for achieving a suffering-free world. And we need active solutions, not passive ones. So antinatalism is about saying, just don't have a child. That will get us closer to extinction, which is very naive, very ignorant. You know, you're still going to have horny people, religious people having loads of children, and they're just going to laugh at you and your antinatalism while they pump out another child and say, wow, he's just given up a space for my kid. What a nice guy.
So what could possibly be your plan to make animals stop reproducing with each other? You're gonna go out there and what, like
So
what's the word?
euthanasia, basically, mass euthanasia.
But wouldn't that be a mass event of suffering?
No, euthanasia is usually, you know, relatively painless. And the thing is, it's, you know, it's one of the nicest ways to go, right, to be euthanized. And if we don't do it, then all of those animals are going to have a horrible way to go. They're going to be eaten alive. They're going to starve to death. They're going to get diseases, cancer. So it's actually a mercy.
Wait, instead of that, I mean, I don't even see how this would be possible because the sheer scale to even pull off something like that is just, to me, sounds absurd. And
Well, humanity does large scale things all the time.
yeah, but to get to every last species on Earth, I mean, we're talking about like scale billions and yeah, billions and billions. But why wouldn't you opt to what's it not what's the word when you like you can't reproduce anymore?
Yeah, sterilized. So
Yeah, why don't you do that instead?
sterilization, we've looked into it. Sterilization is bad. It's not the right way to go. It causes suffering. It messes with the hormones and, you know, the mental balance. It gives them psychological problems, and also it still lets them suffer. It still allows them to go on to a cruel death and to suffer before that as well. So euthanasia is the best way to provide safety from suffering for all life. And yeah, it might be difficult. It might take 100 years. It might take 1,000 years, but eventually we'll be able to do it.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering, why are you putting more weight on the experience of suffering as opposed to uh, how sentient, self-aware, conscious beings, or having at least one of those traits, can experience like pleasure, joy, and even euphoria? But why are you being such a pessimist as opposed to being an optimist for what life can offer just as much, if not more?
Yeah, so it's about a zero tolerance policy on suffering and victims, right? And, in a world like this where there is no way to guarantee 100% safety for any life form, if I have a child right now, I can't guarantee it won't have a terrible life. There is no way to provide, what's fair and right, which is, no more suffering without extinction. So you can try other stuff, but it's still going to have risks. It's still going to have victims. It's exploitative, it's unfair, and it's cruel.
But again, that's you saying that sort of disregards that life has much more to offer than some instances of suffering. You're taking out all the joy and the pleasure, the euphoria, I mean, like
The thing
all the
is that
wonders of
yes,
life that it can
yeah,
bring.
yeah. So there is joy and pleasure, and then there's also suffering and extreme suffering. The safety from extreme suffering is more important than shallow, fleeting pleasures and survival, right? Safety has to come first. It's more important.
But again, you even caring or valuing that such organisms ought not go through experience such as suffering, that implies, like, why do you even care about it in the first place? Because the way I'm hearing it is there's sort of like an underlying implication that is something ought to be valued. How can you justify suffering as something that should not be experienced? As opposed to something else other than simply it being your opinion or your arbitrary preference about how life should be, or the non-existence of life, I guess, at this point.
Well, I mean, there's a few ways to answer that, but I guess we could start by saying that we're on the side of the victims and the sufferers, okay? So, you do have to choose, are you on the side of the privileged, selfish ones who have a very shallow amount of pleasure anyway and are condemning others to suffer and to die in cruel ways? So do you prioritize these evil, selfish people with their shallow pleasure? Or do you prioritize the innocent ones who are being tortured, right? There is no pleasure as intense as is the suffering from a child being raped to death, okay? So you have to protect life as a priority and not allow for unsafe and cruel conditions.
Wait a minute, I just thought of something. Wait, so instead of taking the extreme route of trying to end suffering by literally, like, wiping everything out to the point of extinction, why wouldn't an approach that you could take actually be just wiping out all the things that cause suffering, like take all the
Yeah,
criminals
I
into
get this
jail?
question every day. I get this question every day. So it's impossible to end all suffering without total extinction, because what total extinction does in the main is to prevent new life from being forced into lives that they didn't want, they didn't ask for, that are unsafe and dangerous, and they end up suffering terribly, right? So it's more about prevention.
Okay. Do you believe life exists on Earth for any reason, or does life exist just randomly for no rhyme, reason, or purpose at all?
There's no evidence of a god or anything like that we've seen, so we have to assume that it's just, random chance or whatever.
Okay, so if it's just all here by random chance, then why is suffering even a bad thing? Because to me, suffering can only be
Why is
considered.
suffering bad?
Yeah, yeah.
If a
No,
child gets tortured to death, that's obviously a bad thing, right? So
wait,
it's obvious,
you're saying obviously, but you're not justifying why it's obvious.
but it is obvious though, right? A
How so?
child that gets because unless you've got some serious cognitive impairment, then you would understand that a child being tortured to death, it's a bad experience for them.
Wait. But according to your view, there is no purpose for why life exists even in the first place. We're all just like complicated pieces of matter. Who cares what happens to life? There's no
We
purpose
do.
for it.
We can.
But your care, your value is
You
completely
don't care.
arbitrary.
You don't
It's
care if
arbitrary.
children get. You don't care if children get tortured to death. We do.
Wait. I never told you what I care about. This is a critique on your view. I'm saying in your godless worldview, you actually don't have any justification as to why or the experiences
So you
that
think I need
life goes through.
justification to say that
Of course you
children
do.
shouldn't be tortured to death?
Unless you're willing to bite the bullet
Da,
that
da,
is
da, da,
something.
da, 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 da. I mean, look, we can absolutely go into extreme detail on these topics. We can absolutely take it to the point. No, you didn't cook me, bro. You're the one saying that you don't understand that torturing children is a bad thing. You cooked yourself, okay? We can absolutely go into detail and excruciating levels of detail on all of these questions. But you have to pick your battles, okay? If someone is going to ask silly questions like, bro, you can't prove that torturing children is bad, right? Is that someone that I want to spend my time talking to? Is that, going to be an interesting conversation? Probably not. However, if you want to do a long form debate with us, up to 1 hour, up to 2 hours, contact us on Discord and we will arrange it for a live debate on YouTube. We've done dozens of them. They last 1 or 2 hours, a long time, as long as it needs to last. You can go and check them out by searching on YouTube, Pro Extinction. Check out the channel, check out the live section, and you'll see all of our very long debates with one-on-one debates for like an hour, 2 hours, and we absolutely destroy everyone. There is no defense against, there's no arguing against defending children from torture. There's no way that you can say, no, I think the reasonable and practical way forward is to demand proof that torturing children is bad, okay? If that sounds smart to you, then there's something very wrong with you, okay? There's no reason for anyone to suffer except for selfish reasons. Only selfish reasons, evil reasons, immoral reasons can be used to say, yeah, we should have suffering, right? There's no need for it apart from your selfish desires. You're not, and the guy was trying to say, it's some sort of logical argument that, we should allow suffering and allow children to be tortured. No, it's a selfish argument, right? You're arguing for your side. You're not arguing for the victims, you're not fighting for the victims, you're not fighting for the sufferers. It's the opposite. You're condemning the sufferers. You're the one saying the suffering must go on, right? And you're the one essentially condemning them, oppressing them. You should be saying nobody should suffer. We don't need suffering. It's wrong for anyone to have to suffer. It's unnecessary. Suffering, and especially really extreme suffering, is far too terrible to allow. especially if it's just for some shallow, fleeting pleasures of a selfish person. Why should a selfish person saying they should suffer for my benefit take priority over an innocent being tortured? You know, we are on the side of good, basically. We are on the side of the victims. Extinctionism is the only movement which is working to defend victims of extreme suffering and forced existence. The worst thing in the world. So we are the only movement fighting for the worst sufferers in the world, right? Everyone else is saying, even though their suffering is absurdly extreme, I think we should allow it. I think we should continue forcing them to suffer. You can't be a good person if you're saying that. That's inherently evil, inherently wrong, inherently cruel, and inherently selfish, exploitative, oppressive, fascist, if you will, okay? We should have a zero tolerance policy on making others suffer and allowing others to suffer for benefit. It's gross, it's wrong, it's obviously wrong, and only, you know, evil, selfish reasons can delude you into thinking that somehow it's right. Yeah, it is right for you, but not for the victims. It's wrong, right? Your selfish, shallow privileges and pleasures are not more important than the safety of these innocents that you're willing to condemn to suffer for benefit, right? It should be obvious that if you're pro-suffering, then you are an oppressor, you are condemning others to suffer, you're evil, and you're on the wrong side of history. If you want to be on the right side of history, if you want to be on the side of the victims and the sufferers, then join the pro-extinction movement and help us fight to end all reproduction and all cases of life existing in unsafe conditions, dangerous conditions. You know, if we could press a button and, you know, extinctionism is essentially about optimizing life and optimizing the conditions for life in that sense. Let's, you know, if this is the standard and this is safety, this is 100% safety, we want to take life out of these terrible conditions. Now, we may never get to a point where there is a God tier 100% safety from suffering, but if we do, then we can sort of cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, my fellow extinctionists don't love me talking about the whole pleasure side of it, but I think that in terms of the theory, it is a part of the puzzle, right? It is something that can be considered. You know, if it's a good thing to infinitely take life out of hell, is it a good thing to infinitely put life into heaven? You know, that may well actually make sense. There is value to pleasure and happiness, but not when it's at the expense of others, not when it's in an unsafe and cruel environment. So if we can't get to heaven, then there should be no one in hell. Even the lucky criminals who, like that guy saying everyone else should exist in hell so I can benefit. No one should exist in unsafe conditions. And, you know, animals don't need to suffer. If our mission takes 1,000 years and we can create safe conditions for life at the end of it, then that's great. That's not the priority. The priority is safety from suffering. The priority is the victims. If there's room for pleasure afterwards, then great. But we should absolutely work to make sure that there is no life being born into unsafe conditions and the extreme suffering that comes about as a result. You wouldn't want it to happen to you. You wouldn't want your mother to suffer or anyone in your family to suffer. So we shouldn't condemn anyone to suffer. And you know, if my existence stopped, if I were to pass away, or if I had to pass away in order to protect another life from suffering, then that would be the right thing to do. Now, maybe as leadership for the movement, it wouldn't make sense, but we should be willing and prepared to sacrifice for others, right? If so, I mean, you know, if I had to give up heaven to save someone from hell, that would be the right thing to do. I wouldn't be able to enjoy those pleasures knowing that someone was suffering for my benefit, right? So we should absolutely prioritize the sufferers, prioritize the victims, and it's only a selfish mentality that tells you, no, ignore them, focus on yourself. That's wrong. And as long as you keep having that selfish mentality which says, I just need to focus on myself and screw everyone else, as long as you maintain that, we will continue to exist in an ugly world, a selfish world, a divided world with war, hatred, discrimination, and exploitation. We need a selfless world, an empathetic, rational world where we prioritize those that are suffering, okay? They need help more than us. They need help at all costs. They are the priority. They should be the priority. There is nothing worse than suffering and extreme suffering, okay? In terms of who needs help the most, those that are suffering the worst need it the most. Those that are selfish and privileged and they're, you know, laughing at the sufferers, they need it the least, okay? If you're a privileged person and you're just clinging on to your pleasures, if you lose that and you pass away, what happens? You lose your pleasures, but you gain safety from suffering. You gain bliss. Nothing bad happens. You don't feel pain in non-existence. So you don't need to keep existing, right? You just want to. Whereas the sufferers need to not suffer. It's not that they just selfishly want to not suffer, okay? They need to not suffer. They need to be safe from suffering. That's far more important than the selfish and immoral, disgusting pleasures of the minority, the lucky ones, right? Only the lucky ones in this hellscape that we live in benefit from being forced into hell, and we should make sure that no one else is being forced into hell and suffering. Earth is effectively hell for the vast majority of life here. Most humans, like the guy that came on, live in a bubble. It's a bubble of luxury, a bubble of comfort. You know, you're sitting at home on your comfortable sofa saying, I think they should suffer. I think suffering's not that bad, you know. Oh, you know, suffering's not that bad, guys, you know. Like, they should suffer, right? No, yeah, let them suffer. No, you're not out there, you're not being tortured, you're not facing extreme depression, extreme suffering, extreme physical pain, all of these extreme types of suffering, and yet you're there saying that they should suffer. It's wrong, it's gross, and you can only really be a selfish person if you're condemning others to suffer. You're not doing it for their benefit, right? You're not saying they should suffer for their benefit. That's obviously silly. Now, you know, especially when you die, right, which is what happens in most cases. Most life born on the planet will die during childhood in a painful way. Wild animals die en masse in childhood. So there's no argument that they benefit from that or that it's a good thing. So only selfish reasons could make you try and say that somehow it's good. Anyway, I'm going to get off now, guys. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow. In the meantime, Google search Abolish Suffering Discord and come and join us on Discord and join the chat. I mean, I'm getting off now, but me and the team, me and the activists, we are always on Discord. You can always come and talk to us. And you can also come there to arrange a long-form debate if that's what you want, or to join the movement, ask us how to do activism. And yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Also check out our website, proextinction.com. You can read more about us there, and the link to our Discord is there as well. And please follow and all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Stay on the side of the victim.